Welcome to our third tutorial. We're going to pick up where we left off. I'm going to give you an opportunity to try to find out what the issue is. It's really a very, very common issue. So let me move this out of the way. Now we go into the project CSS and we look at, we have a nav, and this is telling us that anything inside of a nav that has an ID of nav left, we want the background to be white with 100% opacity. And the syntax is the same. Look, we have anything that's inside of an ID wrapper, a header inside of an ID wrapper is going to be there. There's one major difference in there. And the issue is when it comes to an ID, if you don't want it to work, you put a space there. If you want it to work, you cannot have a space. So it's a very common mistake. So now if you have an issue like this, you know how to fix it. Get rid of the space. Once we get rid of the space, now it becomes white over here. So that's what you want to do. You need to have the tag and actually the thing, the ID as well, all grouped together. Or you could have got rid of the nav as well. That took care of that. So right now we have a column that is kind of reddish with 50% opacity, and we can now format this over here. So let's create this as an H1 tag or an H2 tag. Let's see what it is. We'll go into source code. And so now we have an H2 tag. So let's format the H2 tag to look a little bit nicer. So we go back into the CSS designer. I'm going to click on this H2 tag here. And I'll click here as well. So let's go into the CS designer. I'm going to click on selector. And notice that it found it right away. So basically, this is saying anything that's in a right with an H2 tag. So right off the bat, we know there's an issue. So let's get rid of that. And the reason why we know it's an issue, because we know it's inside of the nav. So that means we selected the wrong thing. So let's go back into our live view. And we want it here. Let's select it from right here. Go back into code, and now we have it right selected. So there's another mistake that I made for you so that you've got to make sure that what you want is actually going to be what you want. If you happen to hear dogs in the background, my two dogs are barking. I'm guessing that the mailman has now made his presence known, and they are announcing him. I have not trained them to get the mail yet, but I'm not sure if I'd want to have the mail after they got it. So let's go back into our designer. In here, we have the H2, and we're going to insert a new selector. Now notice we're left, nav left, H2. So we can make this as far as we want, and we could also make this a nav, nav left. You know, again, you have to use judgment the way you want it. So what I'm going to do to be consistent with what we have before, I'm going to delete this and put in nav. Now again, as far as the browser is concerned, it could care less. This just makes it look a little bit more consistent as to what we're actually doing. Hit the enter key. And let's go into the background. And let's make the background color a dark blue. And let's see if that worked, which it did. Okay, but this looks rather unattractive. So let's go back into the CSS designer and let's change the text to white. Easiest way to do white is to bring this all the way up. White is 255, 255, 255, and of course this 1 means 100% opacity. So now it's white. So let's play a little bit more with it. Let's make the font style italic and the font weight bold, and see what that looks like. It's okay. We might not like the italic, so again, the visual really works good. So let's change the text alignment to center. Now it's center, but it still doesn't look all that great. So let's go in and put some padding on the top and the bottom. And now we'll put a little bit of space over here. So do not do margin. We want to do padding. So let's put 10 here. And 10 here. So that looks a little bit nicer. So, and then I will show you how to get this all the way over in a future video. Take one step at a time. So basically, we probably want to change this to menu. If you don't like the italic, then get rid of it. This means disable it, and this means remove it. So let's disable it, and you can see it goes back to normal. Let's go into the project file and see what that actually did in here. So notice it put a comments around here, so it's disabled. So it's still there if we want it back at a future time. So we can always enable it if we want to. So now we have this. It doesn't look all that good. So what we're going to do is we're going to start setting up our menu system in here. I'm going to go into Design View. I just think in many cases it's easier. We have Whole World in here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert an unordered list. And I'm just going to do item 1, item 2, item 3, and item 4. So these will be our menus. Now it's not styled. I'm going to make a separate video on styling the top menu and styling the side menu over here. So this doesn't look all that great right now, but it will look a lot nicer. And of course, this is down here because we're not in live view. So let's go back to live view. Now we have some dilemmas over here. So what I want to do here is I want to take the wrapper over here and let's make the background color white for everything, and let's make the text black for everything. Before I do that, I'm going to add a background image to the body. And it's going to look kind of not so good, but it's going to give you an idea of how to do different things. So what I need to do, of course, get back into the CSS Designer. And we want to be in the body. So we don't have a body tag. Yes, we do have a body tag over here. And we'll go to background. And we'll choose background image. And what we need to do is find the image that I'm looking for. It's from one of the projects in the CIT338. And I believe it was in the photography, images, and we want this one over here. So this is kind of opaque. It's a PNG file, not a JPEG file. We're going to click on OK. And now notice we have an issue here. Several issues, actually. Number one, this is tiled. The reason why it's tiled is because we have the repeat on both horizontally and vertically, which makes sense because we want it this way. But however, it's not a very appealing thing over here, but we'll leave it. But look what happened. Up top over here, it's showing through, and it really doesn't look good. And the reason why it's showing through is because we have not done a background color for the wrapper. So once we do a background color for the wrapper, there. And you can also see the fact that this is 50% opaque means that it's going to show through over here. So let's go back into our designer and let's find a wrapper and let's change the background color. Notice how it's not defined, and let's just change it to white. And now that takes care of that. So only the body has it over there. And we'll leave that for right now. Then I'm going to change the text color to be black. I want to make it black. It's already black over here. It's 000. That means unless we tell it otherwise, it needs to be black. And then you can change the font family, and I recommend changing the font family to something that most computers are going to have. So you can choose one of your favorite ones over here. Everything's going to have Times New Roman in here. So we can do that. It's going to have Arial. So just for our purposes, I'm going to choose this one over here. And boom. So that means unless you tell it otherwise, this is what we want, period. Now, if I were to change the font height or the font size, then it's going to change it for everything. So I'll do that real quick. And just for the heck of it, let's make it extra large. And you can see it makes it extra large for in here. So what I'm going to do is change the default height to 14 pixels. I could also change it to 1M. So we'll do both, and you can see what it is. So we have the font size. Let's change it to pixels, and let's make it 14 pixels. Now, you don't see anything because it's 14 point. Now it's 14 point. Let's change this to 1M and see what that does. That means it makes it 14 times the size of what the default font is. So now it's 1. So again, I would recommend leaving it 1M. However, that's totally up to you what you want to do. There's no right way and there's no wrong way in here. And let's make the default left align in here, and we're pretty good over here. Now, font style over here, you can see your different font styles, normal, italic, oblique. We don't care about that. Font variable. Now, here's something that we like, small caps, and that might be something for the menu system. So we're going to try that in a minute. And, of course, your text align. Your text decoration, this just means put an underline, put a line above it, and put something in the middle here. We're not going to really need to worry about this over here. Text transform would mean make this all capital letters, make this all or lowercase letters, and just the first word, make it all uppercase, make it all lowercase. So you can mess around with this thing over here. Word spacing and letter spacing affects if you want to put a little bit of letters spacing between the letters, we would do this, word spacing, so and so. We can do that on the menu system for the headers. So right now, we're in pretty good shape over here. So let's go back in here, and let's put a little bit of spacing in this over here, and then let's do the different text transforms and see what that does. So we have the nav left. Now notice the nav left H2 is here, and the nav left is down over here. It's nice to have everything together. So we probably want the wrapper up first here. Let's drag this up here. Above that, we really should have the body. Then we have the column containers, and we have left. We haven't done one for right. And then we have the wrapper header, which is up here. What you'll find if you have a large CSS file, all of a sudden, you're going to be trying to find something. And there's ways to do that simply by just going to clicking on something, right-clicking on it, and choose Go to Code. And that will do that for you. All right, so what we're going to do now here is let's just take the nav left H2, and let's see what these different things do. If I put the underline, it puts an underline there. We'll get rid of that. And this is on top. This is strike through. So let's get rid of this. If we want to do the text transform, this is a capital. It's already capitalized. This is all uppercase. And this is all lowercase. So let's do the capitalize. And even if I do this capitalize here, all uppercase, if I go into code view, notice it's still a capital letter here. And these are all lowercase because we're using CSS to change it. So that takes care of that. We're in text over here. And, okay, letter spacing. So this is normal, means what it is. So let's try putting 2 pixels of space between each letter. And notice that it just spreads it out over there. And obviously we have word spacing is only 1 word, so we don't really need to mess around with that. And we'll leave these things alone for right now when we start doing lists over here. So now we have that over here. And I'm going to do one last thing in this video. I'm going to create a footer CSS tag, change the background. I'm going to change the height of it, the div, and then I'm going to do some formatting. That'll be the last thing that we do in this video. So I'm clicking on footer, clicking on add selector. Notice that it's got footer over here. We can leave this as such. We don't really want it here, so we'll move this up later on. So once we do that, just drag this up here. So now I want to change the footer. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the background color. And we have a background color already in there. And that's a result of something else. So let's go and change the background color to black. And I actually just changed it to white. So let's change this all the way down here. Then let's change the text color to white. The reason why you can't see it is because, remember, we changed the text color to black for everything unless it gets overridden. So right now you have black text on a black background. So we want to change that to white. And then we want the text align to be center. And then let's just change the height, and let's do a minimum height of 100 pixels. Now, I don't normally do this. I just wanted to show you what this does. So now we have a minimum height of in here. So what I normally do is I leave the height alone, fill it in with the text, and we're going to undo that, and then just use padding on the top and the bottom. So let's put over here, this is going to be a P tag. So I'm going to go back into design, and I'm going to put over here. I usually just select everything but 1 or 2 letters so I know I don't delete the tag. And I'm going to put company name here. And I'm going to hit the enter key, and I'm going to put address. And you can see now we have some white space in here. And I will address that in the next video. Address here. And then we'll put phone and email or whatever you want over here. So that takes care of that. And let's just change this to a H2 tag. Now, normally your H1 tags resolve strictly for your page headers and things of that nature. Those are very important, H1 tags and H2 tags in here. So you can use an H1 tag for this because this is going to be your company name. So we want the browsers and the search engines to find it. So let's just change this over here from a format to a paragraph to an H1 tag. So now it automatically is going to change it to whatever the default is for H1 tag. So what I want to do here is let's create a class. I'll create a selector here. And notice we have an H1 tag that's within a footer. So let's just change this. And again, you're going to play around with it however way you want to. Let's just change the font size to 1.5 M's. So we have M, and we'll change this to 1.5 and see how that looks. So you may like that. You may want to change it to 2, but that looks okay. And then let's give it a little bit of spacing in there. So what we're going to find is the letter spacing, and let's change that to 2 pixels. And you can see it puts things over here. We don't really want to mess around with the word spacing. We don't need anything over here in this position here. So then what we're going to do now is let's get rid of that minimum height of the footer. And as soon as I find it, should be in layout. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I don't want that anymore. So let's make it, we'll remove it. Okay, so now we have this push up here and here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some padding on the top and padding on the bottom. We want to be in layout. Do not use margin. We want to use padding. So let's click padding and let's put 15 and 15 and see how that looks. That's a little bit much. So let's change that to 10 and 10. And I'm going to do it here in over here just to show you how you can do it. So we have, as soon as I find it, footer, okay, right here. So we change this to 10 and 10. And that takes care of that. So that looks okay, and we may want to adjust it further in here. So just to be on the safe side, let's go back into our CSS design here. We need to be in the image file. And it looks like my program's going to lock up on me and be nasty. Actually, it did not. Thank you. So that is a demonstration on make sure that you change early and often. And I did not. If it locked up on me, then I would have lost everything. I would have been very depressed, and I would have had to do this all over again. So now I don't have to. So let's go into footer, and let's go into layout. And that's the wrapper footer, and we have nothing in here. So let's see what we have. Layout, text, layout. So we have padding 10 and 10. Okay, so that works out very good. It's at this point in time, not all that exciting. We're going to play around with it. We're going to do some things over here. And so you can see, if we go back into live, how it looks. Not all that great, but there's not much information in here. So this is a little big. So what we're going to do is, as we play with the footer, we're going to put a little bit less spacing between these lines. This is a paragraph, and this is a paragraph. This is a header. So it comes with default margin between lines in here. So we're going to change that in our next video. So that's it for this one, and see you soon.